Okay, here we go. Hi. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. We're going to begin our usual class. Like a lot of people have on their cell phones, you know what to do. So we're going to take refuge and generate bodhicitta as a motivation with words. And then afterwards, when we finish some of these prayers, we're going to meditate to try to solidify that. Sangye chodang soki chognam la, jangchu baru dagni kyapsu chi, dagi chunin gipe sognam ki, drola penche sangye drupa sho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye churang soki chognam la, jangchu baru dagni kepsu chi, dagi chunin gipe sognam ki, drola penche sangye drupa sho. It would be very good to memorize that, because when you hear teachings with the Dalai Lama and other lamas, almost invariably they will begin with that prayer. And then the short mandala offering to the Dharmakaya, the wisdom Dharmakaya Shan, which is our primordial guru. By offering this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers. So if you had a mandala plate, you'd be holding a mandala plate, and sometimes beforehand you would put perfume on it, and you would sprinkle flowers on that, and you would be putting rice on. By offering this ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, so you would put a pile of rice in the center representing Mount Meru, the four continents, you'd put piles of rice in the four directions, and around each of those four directions there are two subcontinents. So you'd put 8 more piles of rice on. The sun and the moon, visualized as a Buddha realm. May all migrators enjoy a pure realm. And then request, in essence, offering the mandala to request the teaching. O holy and perfect pure Lama, wisdom Dharmakaya, from the clouds of compassion that form the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma. The vast is conventional, the profound means the wisdom teachings, precisely in accordance of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niyatayami. And then sit comfortably. There we go. We're going to meditate for a few minutes to set our motivation in practice. I mean, actually, the prayers themselves, if you are practiced, if you're familiar, you can just simply by saying those words, you can bring back a remembering consciousness of taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, but probably we don't have that facility. So that's why we try to meditate now. So in the future, when you say those words, pong, it just will rise up in your mind the meaning that we're going to try to generate now. So first begin by calming your mind after relaxing your body, reminding yourself you don't have to think of anything else. Place your attention, first of all, on the respiration. Once you recognize it, keep it in mind with your mental consciousness, the mental factor mindfulness, to the exclusion of all other thoughts that want to pop in. There will be. Just at first ignore them, let them go, and revivify your mindfulness of the respiration. Don't spread your thought to other things like your body or your mind or the sense of I. Just watching the respiration while recognizing when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. And bring one respiration up your nostrils to the crown of your head, as though it's going to the crown of your head, down to your heart chakra. Leave your attention there and watch your mental consciousness. That you get to know by watching its contents, because the consciousness itself is of clear light, something that's a hidden phenomena that it can't be perceived at the beginning without using some inference, some logic. The appearance of your body, the appearance of your ego, thoughts, images, emotional states, maybe criticism. Why are we doing this again? Whatever. All of them are arising within this spaciousness of your mind, which doesn't impede the arisal of thoughts. It doesn't hinder their absorption back into the consciousness. This is our conventional clear light nature, conventional Buddha nature, as opposed to the emptiness of the mind, which is our ultimate Buddha nature. So the ultimate nature of our mind, its emptiness, will eventually, the continuum of that will eventually become the nature body, the Svadhyamaka, one aspect of the Dharmakaya. In our conventional mind, we're watching the nature of right now, its continuum will become the Dharmakaya, the wisdom Dharmakaya. Feel some joy that you recognize that we're not limited by our present conception of ourselves. Any faults that we have are just temporary, adventitious. It means they arise due to certain causes and conditions, but are not permanent. All of the good qualities that we lack right now can be developed within our mind. And the fact that we can recognize this right now, we can recognize this developmental Buddha nature, that is the conventional clear light nature of the mind, is due to this auspicious moment of having a life of leisure and endowment that the Buddha praised so many times in the sutras. It's this functional kind of auspicious moment when we can do amazing things. We can break up all of the faults of our mind. We can become really worthy of the name human being. We can develop empathy for others, compassion, wisdom, renunciation. We can find our own inner happiness of liberation. But having been exposed to the Mahayana teachings, where the Buddha advised the bodhisattvas, it would be very selfish to work just for your own liberation, your own nirvana, knowing the plight of all living beings who have been your mother numberless times in the past, depthlessly kind. We say depthlessly kind, even mother of this lifetime has been kind in so many ways. But when you think of the numberless times our present mother has been kind as an animal, as an insect, and other realms, protected us, taught us, gave us pleasures. Our present mother is depthlessly kind when you consider that. And all living beings are exactly equal with our present mother in having been depthlessly kind. Not only that, all living beings have exactly the same aspirations as we in this sense. They all want to be happy and never satisfied with the happiness they have. And they all want to be free of suffering. With some prior understanding of selflessness, knowing that we are merely imputed on this body and mind complex, these five aggregates. But this body is not ourself. We identify with it. It's something that was given to us through the egg and sperm of our mother and father. So we could identify I with the entirety of sentient beings, with their body aggregates, their mind aggregates. They're suffering. They are rudderless. They're without a protector. I think in order to help them, to alleviate their suffering and put them into some substantial happiness, long-lasting happiness, I need to know the methods. Only by becoming a Buddha, can we know perfectly the methods to alleviate their suffering, place them into everlasting happiness. In order to achieve the state of enlightenment, I have to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom. Accumulations of merit through practicing the bodhisattva deeds that we're talking about in the text we're studying, and the collection of wisdom by understanding emptiness, meditating on emptiness, having direct realization of it. That also is the topic of this text we're studying. So with that sequence, in order to help sentient beings, I have to become Buddha. In order to become a Buddha, I have to accumulate merit and wisdom. In order to accumulate merit and wisdom, I need to know how to develop them. So for that purpose, I'm going to be listening, contemplating, and meditating during the class in order for that great purpose of becoming enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. I'm going to participate in the class today in order to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. If you can make a firm determination like that, a firm motivation. And then bring your attention back. So good to see you. When Lama Zopa Rinpoche would give such motivation at the beginning of teachings in the past, he would add other facets that you may, remember. I think we've been circling in cyclic existence since beginningless time. Most of the time in the lower realms, the hell realms, the greater realm, the animal realm. Occasionally when we pop up because of some karma, virtuous karma we created, we don't necessarily have a perfect human rebirth. Maybe we're born as a human or a god in a time when the Buddhist teachings, the Dharma hasn't been well enunciated in the world. People are like barbarians. There may still be kindness, but very difficult to practice. So while we have this opportunity, when the teachings are existing, we're born as a human, go for it. So, anyone have any questions left over from our previous classes or anything else that you've been thinking about? No? Everyone okay? Okay. So I'm going to just remind us, we're in the section in Illumination. In the written text, in Jimpa's translation, is page 124. In Hopkins' translation in the book Compassion in Tibetan Buddhism, it's page 199. And we're just on the outline called Proclaiming that Morality is the Cause of Both Higher Rebirths and Definite Goodness. Or as more precisely, it's praising, not sure why Chippa says proclaiming, the Tibetan says praising that morality is the cause of both higher rebirths and definite goodness. And we mentioned the seventh stanza of the second chapter that Jimpa translates: ordinary beings and the speech-born Shravakas, the Shravaka Buddhas that are born from the speech of the Buddha, those who are established for self-enlightenment, that means the solitary realizers, as well as the children of the conqueror, the Buddha's sons. Literally, it says in Sanskrit and in Tibetan, which we can take to be children rather than sons. Epithet of the bodhisattvas. As to their definite goodness and birth in higher rebirth and higher birth in higher realms, the cause is none other than morality. So that goes for, everyone, ordinary beings, bugs and dogs and ordinary people, meat and potato people, in order to be born in the higher realms. The only cause is morality, and as well for Shravakas, Pratika Buddha, practitioners. They're not yet arhats or aryas necessarily, when they can be called definite in the lineage, and the bodhisattvas. All of them, the cause of birth in higher realms is without morality, you can't. It's not saying that morality is the only cause, but that's the essential cause. If you don't have morality, you can't be born in the future in higher realms. So then, where we ended last time, the text continues as commentary to that seventh stanza. Both the attainment of physical existence in the higher realms, as well as lasting enjoyment of the fruits of generosity. So when we talked about the first Bhumi, we talked about the surpassing practice of generosity, which is a substantial cause of having resources. But if you're not born in the upper realms, you're not going to enjoy those things as a human. You're going to enjoy them as a dog or a preta or as a naga and so forth. Even in the hell realms, even the so occasional respite, cool breeze in the hot realms is the result of having practiced generosity in the past. So both the attainment of physical existence in the higher realms, birth in the higher realms, as well as the lasting enjoyment of the fruits of generosity while living there depend on morality, and morality is indispensable for attaining definite goodness. Melvin, do you know what definite goodness is?
No, I don't.
Okay, definite goodness. So we talk about two things. We talk about higher rebirth and definite goodness as two goals to aspire to. Higher rebirth means birth as a human or as a god, free of the sufferings and the ignorance of the lower realms of the animals, pretas, and hell. And the other goal is definite goodness, which means escape from cyclic existence or achievement of enlightenment. It includes both. Morality is indispensable for attaining definite goodness as well. So you can't achieve liberation or enlightenment without practicing morality. In this manner, the cause of birth in higher realms for ordinary beings who have not yet entered the path, and the cause for definite goodness for those who have entered the path, such as the Shravakas, the hearers who are born from the speech of the Muni. Remember our initial part of the text that said the Shravakas and the middling Buddhas, middling realizers of suchness, are born from the speech of the Muni, meaning Shakyamuni, the Buddha. For those who are established for the path of self-enlightenment, that means the solitary realizers, and for the bodhisattvas who are the children of the conquerors, there is nothing other than morality as the cause. The meaning here is not that morality is the only cause, and that other causes are somehow excluded. For there are numerous causes besides morality. It's not that morality is the sole cause. The meaning rather is that to achieve the exceptional birth in the higher realms or to achieve definite goodness, all other conditions must be definitely connected with, conjoined with morality. If it is shunned, if it is given up, these fruits can never be achieved. So when I asked one of the students some weeks ago, or they asked whether one could be born in the upper realms as a result of an act of charity. And I said, that's not enough. It had to be at least conjoined with ethics. So these lines actually summarize what is stated in the Dashabhumika, the Sutra of the 10 Grounds that we've quoted from before. So the Madhyamaka Vatara is well known. Chandrakirti quotes the Dashabhumika many, many times because he's talking about the 10 bhumis, and this is sort of like one of the Mahayana sources for all of the discourse about that. So this is kind of a condensation coming right here of what's said in the Dashabhumika. There, each of the 10 non-virtues, such as taking a life, the non-virtuous actions, such as killing, is divided into great, middling, and small degrees, which lead respectively to the hells, the animal realm, and to the hungry ghost realm. Have you heard that before? Let's see here. Who's going to say something?
The order. So
Yeah.
The middle ones lead to animal realm, and the small ones to the hungry ghost realm. Yeah.
Where am I here? Which page? Which page are we in Jeffrey Hopkins' book? I've lost.
199.
190. Okay, right. Thank you. Scroll down here. So Jeffrey translates it. Let's see here. Ooh. There we go. 199. Sorry. I should have been there to begin with. I was up in the patience. Okay. So Jeffrey says, each of the 10 non-virtues, killing and so forth, are divided into great, middling, and small, which lead respectively to migrations as hell beings, animals, and hungry ghosts. So there's different ways of explaining that. So for instance, why would animal, from one point of view, why would an animal rebirth be considered less desirable than a preta rebirth? Does anyone know? KT, have you heard before?
Maybe the animal rebirth, you maybe are sort of forced to keep killing versus the preta, maybe there's not that level of killing and like that level of dividing a virtue or non-virtue into 3 levels.
Could
I'm
be
just
something
putting
like
out an idea.
anyone have heard before why animal, let's say, you see, in terms of suffering, hell being is the worst, preta is next, and animal is least. But in terms of intelligence, the hell beings are worst. The pretas actually have ability to actually understand the Dharma and practice it and so forth, more so than the animals. There are some animals like nagas and so forth who have some intelligence and revere the Dharma, but I think it's taken from that point of view in terms of, the suffering, not from this physical suffering, but from the point of view of being able to practice the path. That's why hell, animal, hungry ghost is given. Usually when we talk about the levels, we talk about, say, below human, below human, animal, below that preta, and below that hell in terms of suffering, physical suffering. but in terms of ability to practice the path, the pretas are a little bit better. Does that make sense? Who would ask that? I can't remember. Mikael or something.
I did, yeah. Thank you. Great.
So even if one is ultimately born among humans, having taken a life, for instance, brings forth two undesirable effects. So here it gets into a little bit complicated thing, because when you take, once you're born in the lower realms as a result of the maturation of a negative karma, well, let me put it this way. I've mentioned before, Jennifer, do you remember what the 4 results of a, of fully formed karmic action are?
The ripened result, which is a rebirth in a realm, the environmental result, the result similar to the cause and experience, and the result similar to the cause and the action.
Right. Okay. So you can divide into 4, or you can divide into 3. That is to say, you can say the maturation result, or the ripening result, which is like what impels you into a rebirth. The result is similar to the cause, which conflates the two, similar to the causes in experience and similar to the causes in action, and environmental. So that's crucial to know here. So here it says, when one is, even as one is ultimately born among humans, having taken a life, for instance, brings forth 2 undesirable effects, a result of killing: brevity of life and abundance of illness. So what happened to the other effects? Do you know, Paul? Have you thought about it? Here it says there's 2, right?
Yeah, no.
All through the Dashabhumika, talking about the 10 non-virtues. Once, from stealing, from sexual misconduct and so forth, you can go to the lower realms. And once you are born as a human, it always says there are 2 undesirable effects, but there has to be 3, right? Unless you conflated the result similar to the cause into one. One of the result similar to the cause as an action means the habitual result. That means if you've killed before, you have the tendency of killing again, right? That's actually the worst one, the worst of the effects, because you can bear with, being harmed or have illness and so forth. But if you kill, you're creating the karma for future suffering. Then the result similar to the cause as an experience of killing would mean being killed yourself. Here, what does it say? Brings forth 2 undesirable effects. Brevity of life. That means either being killed by someone or having a shortened lifetime because of that. The result similar to the cause as an experience. And having, what does it say? What's the other word here? Brevity of life and abundance of illness. So it's difficult to see. Abundance of illness also seems like it'd be a result similar to the cause as an experience, but maybe you could say it's an environmental result. It's very difficult as you go through these, the 10 non-virtues that are mentioned in the Dashabhumika, to see how they get all of the expected results as a human. Jeffrey Hopkins, in his translation, let's see right here. He's talking about, so he says, each of the remaining nine non-virtues also produces 2 undesirables. That's the next sentence here. Likewise, each of the remaining 9 acts also brings about 2 undesirable effects. Or Jeffrey translates, each of the remaining 9 non-virtues also produces 2 undesirables. And then he puts in parentheses, a birth in a bad migration and a later birth as an unfortunate human. Well, that would make sense, right? You say each of the 10 non-virtues brings about 2 undesirable effects. One, if you're talking about a fully formed karma that can throw you, one is the maturation result, brings you to the lower realms, and one is once you're born as a human, having an undesirable human rebirth, short life, illness, being in a dangerous place. For instance, the environmental result of killing is to be in a place that's very dangerous and so forth. So I've asked some scholars what they think of that, and they say it looks like the Tibetan and the Sanskrit. If you go to the Sanskrit of the Dashabhumika, it looks like it's saying these 2 results, such as having short life and many diseases, or what does it say? Abundance of illnesses. But Jeffrey's putting in parentheses there that these are the 2 undesirables that makes more sense. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know about that. Stephen, what are you thinking?
Well, thank you, Venerable George. So I looked at the translation of the Dashabhumika from 84,000.co.
Right.
And when I look at verse 190, I'll just put it into the chat. It talks about even if born as a human, there will be 2 results of that karma: seeking opportunities to harm and being tormented by others. So how I interpret, maybe incorrectly, that last sentence is that even if born as human, so that's...
You're talking about malice.
Yeah, and I just picked that one at random.
So that makes sense, because of the 10 non-virtues that are mentioned in the Dashabhumika, each of the 10 of the 3 mental non-virtues, covetous, malice, and wrong view, seem to have, one of them seems to be the action, the result of that is similar to the cause as an action. So here, as you put there, malice beings will be born in hell, animal Yama realm, Yama's realm. Even if born as a human, there will be 2 results of that karma: seeking opportunities to harm, and that seems to be in the Tibetan also, that's talking about sola, seeking to harm, and being tormented by others. That would be kind of like the result similar to the cause as an experience. But that one leaves off any kind of chance of an environmental effect.
Yeah.
So, but those are the only 3 of the 10 that seem to have the habitual result. So it's kind of interesting. The Tibetan and the Sanskrit seem to be saying that there are going to be 2 effects, but as Jeffrey puts in parentheses there, he's saying each of the remaining 9 non-virtues also produces 2 undesirables. And when he says 2 undesirables, he puts in parentheses birth in a bad migration and later birth as an unfortunate human. So that's just to keep in mind. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering why it looked like there were different formulations for the types of karma that come to fruition based on the different non-virtues.
Right. And it's not clear. I haven't heard from any other of my fellow, Buddhist practitioners any explanation about that other than what Jeffrey has put there. So let's go on. Even if brevity of life, and likewise, each of the remaining 9 acts also brings about 2 undesirable effects. In contrast, the 10 virtues result in birth as humans and gods, the human realm and the God realm. So when you talk about Jimba says celestial, so that would mean, what are the celestials? Who are the celestials? Does anyone know?
I assume that's his translations for asura, demigods.
Well, here it says 10 virtues result in births as humans and celestial beings in the desire realm on up to the peak of existence. So generally we say above the human realm, that's called the Deva realm. And so there are two kinds of Devas there. Well, you could say the Asuras, which are demi-devas, you might say, and the actual Devas in the desire realm. And then above that, the form realm and the formless realm. Beings that are born there also are called, you can say, Devas. They're gods or celestials, as he says here, up to the peak of existence. All of those beings. So you have the humans and the gods, you might say. They're celestial. Above this, if the 10 non-virtues are accompanied by an intermediate intention, one that focuses on securing one's own welfare and renouncing cyclic existence out of fear, but is without great compassion, and if this is thoroughly purified by means of wisdom that realizes selflessness by following another's words, one will definitely gain freedom through the Shravaka vehicle. What does that mean? Is that it? Shankar, can you translate that for me?
I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted today. Would you remind me?
You stay distracted. So, Richard, can you kind of explain what that's saying there?
I think it's saying that if you practice the 10 virtues and you have an intermediate attention, which means the middle scope, which means the desire to leave samsara to attain nirvana, then you can attain that through the Shravaka vehicle, through the vehicle of the hearers.
Right. If it's conjoined with the wisdom of selflessness, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So intermediate intention, Hopkins translates in conjunction with a trifling attitude aimed at one's own welfare alone, together with renunciation and fear of cyclic existence. When the 10 virtues are practiced with this aspect lacking great compassion, right? So it's within the Hinayana, they still talk about great compassion, but not the Mahayana great compassion. Mahayana great compassion is one that not only wants others to be free of suffering, where the Shravakas certainly want others to be free of suffering, but the great compassion, the Mahayana, Mahakaruna, implies that one wants to do something oneself to get rid of their suffering. One doesn't say, oh, pity, the people are suffering, what a shame, great compassion, but one does something about it. Okay, so above that, above this, if in one's final life in cyclic existence, one does not rely on another's power and focuses on the awakening of a pratika Buddha, and if without great compassion and skillful means, one comes to be purified by penetrating the truth of profound dependent origination. So this means dependent origination, usually talking about the 12 links. That's the meaning of dependent origination of the Pratika Buddha's principal focus, rather than the Four Noble Truths, which is the principal focus of the Shravakas. One comes to be purified by penetrating the truth of profound dependent origination. One will definitely gain freedom through the Pratika Buddha vehicle. Or as Jeffrey says, if one still higher is the practice of one who in his final existence does not depend on others and aims at the enlightenment of a solitary realizer. So both of them seem to imply in their final, is like they make the decision in their final existence. But the Pratika Buddha path may have lasted thousands and thousands of lifetimes, whereas the Shravaka fruit, the Shravaka Nirvana, will take at the most 16 lifetimes. If they don't achieve it by that time, they kind of peter out and they become an ordinary being. They give up renunciation. So it's not as though they just have that aspiration to achieve their own nirvana by themselves in their final, when the final lifetime comes. They've had it from the beginning, right? It's just to keep in mind. Above this, above the Pratika Buddha maturation of practicing morality, if one has loving heart that is vast and limitless, if one is endowed with compassion, if one's path encompasses the skillful means, if one makes great waves of aspirational prayers, if one does not forsake sentient beings, and if one comes to be purified by focusing on the expansive wisdom of the Buddhas, one will totally purify the bodhisattva grounds and achieve the vast deeds of pure perfections. Or as Jeffrey says, if one with extremely vast and immeasurable mercy, compassion, and skill in means, if one practices thus establishing great waves of prayer petitions, not casting aside any sentient being, but aiming at the extremely vast Buddha wisdom, one is thoroughly purified through the mind of enlightenment. So Jimpa says, one becomes purified by focusing on the expansive wisdom of the Buddhas. And then Jimpa says one will totally purify the bodhisattva grounds. Hopkins translates a little bit differently. Vast Buddha wisdom, one is thoroughly purified through the mind of enlightenment, that means bodhicitta, and accomplishes the vast deeds of the perfections. Snehi, what are you thinking?
I was just curious, Venerable George, when it talks about the Shravaka vehicle, it says purified by means of the wisdom that realizes selflessness. But when it talks about the Pratika Buddha vehicle, it says purified by penetrating the truth of profound dependent origination. I was curious why, it's not, why they both would not be the same and why that distinction is made.
So the Shravakas, mainly, their main object of meditation, their procedure is to meditate on the Four Noble Truths. So the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering. They recognize the origination or cause of suffering is karma and klesha, right? And therefore they recognize that the main klesha is the grasping to a person. Let's say, even if you talk about their because if they're achieving liberation, they have to realize emptiness. So you're talking about their grasping to the person as inherently existent. But they use that procedure, the Four Noble Truths, and they meditate on selflessness of persons. The Pratika Buddhas also meditate on the selflessness of persons, the fact that the person is empty of an inherently existent person. But the main procedure they meditate on is not the Four Noble Truths, is that the 12 links of dependent origination. So I don't think the implication here is that the hero, you might think selflessness might be from the Hinayana point of view, selflessness, the lack of a permanent, partless, independent person or a self-supporting, substantially existent person. We know from the presentation of the Ten Bhumi Sutra and from Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti that the hearers and solitary realizers both realize emptiness. So it's not talking about selflessness of persons, but they're alone, from a lower tenet point of view, but the selflessness of persons that is defined in the Prasangika philosophy. the lack of an inherently existent person. But their methodology is mainly revolved around understanding how we're caught in cyclic existence due to the Four Noble Truths. The Pratika Buddhas have also studied that, but they take more detailed analysis of how we're immersed or enmeshed in cyclic existence by meditating on the 12 links of dependent origination, which is a little bit more elaborate. But still in that, you come to the final conclusion. In order to cease ignorance, the first link, you have to realize emptiness. You have to realize, the lack of a self-support, lack of an inherently existent person. So I think they're getting down to the same thing. But it could lead to some kind of doubt about that if you thought that was talking about different realization of the Pratika Buddhas. They have the same realization of emptiness, but they accumulate merit for a longer period of time, and they have a more detailed understanding of the workings of cyclic existence by meditating on the 12 links. Okay. So just let me read a couple of these from the Dashabhumika so you might wonder, in the Madhyamaka Vatara Bhasham, so Chandrakirti wrote his Karakas, then he wrote his commentary, his auto-commentary, which in Tibetan is Bhashya. So in that, he quotes this whole segment of these 10, which Lama Tsong Khapa just mentions the first, right? So let me read a couple here. So from my translation of the Madhyamaka Vatara. Relying on and abundantly enacting these paths of actions of the 10 non-virtues to a great degree becomes a cause of the hell beings. Middling becomes a cause of the animal state of rebirth. Small becomes the cause of the world of the Lord of Death, which is a synonym here for the Preta realm. Usually we talk about Yama as being the hell realm, right? The Lord of the guardian of the hell realm, but here it's a synonym of the Preta realm. There, through killing, sentient beings are led to the hells, led to the animal state of rebirth, led to the worlds of the Lord of Death. Then, even if born among humans, 2 maturations will be manifestly achieved: short life and many diseases. So it's at that point that Hopkins, you would put Hopkins' meaning of the 2 maturations: birth in a bad migration and later birth as an unfortunate human, and giving just examples of some of the unfortunate states of being a human as a result of killing, such as having a short life and many diseases. Through the next one, through taking what is not given. What is that? Taking what is not given. Diana, do you know what that means? What are we ordinary
Referring to
people?
stealing?
Yeah, that's what we call stealing. So literally is talking about that which is not given, right? So in the monastic vows, if you're not given something, you can't take it. That's considered stealing, or taking what is not given. Through taking what is not given, sentient beings are led to the hells, led to the animal state of rebirth, led to the world of the Lord of Death. Then, even if born among humans, 2 maturations will be manifestly achieved. Small resources and shared or common resources. You have, because you've stolen in the past, your resources will be meager, or they will be shared with others. You don't have full autonomy over them. But there would be other things also, right? There would be the environmental effect of stealing and the habitual result. That means you would have the tendency of stealing again. Shankar, what do you think?
Would you mention which chapter and verse you're reading from in the Dashabhumika?
Right, it's from the second Bhumi.
Okay.
Isn't it? Oh, wait, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the second Bhumi here? Yeah, we're on the second Bhumi, right? We're talking about the perfection of morality. So I think, let's see, I think I had...
Are you reading from the Dashabhumika or from the Bhashyam?
I'm reading from the quoting in the Bhashyam of the Dashabhumika, which if you compare it, like who was it just quoted? I think Stephen said he read or he excised part of the translation of the Dashabhumika from the site 84,000.com. So you can find that. You write 8, the number 8, 4, comma, 000.com, and you can go to that site and you can look up the Dashabhumika. You can download the whole English translation, and if you're clever, you can click on the page numbers, and a small segment of the Tibetan text will come up for that section. You can go through the whole thing and find the Tibetan also if you're studying Tibetan.
Yeah, I have the translation. I'm just asking which chapter and verse you're reading from, what the quote is from the Dashabhumika. Do you know?
Look in the
Stephen
chat.
will know. Stephen, do you know? Do you have the Dashabhumika there? You tell him which number it is. I can't remember. They have a different enumeration of the numbering.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've just put the link in there, Shanka, and it's section 1, how it's numbered on that website, section 1, verse 183. And there's the link will take you there to that verse.
Okay, thank you.
So the Tibetan text is just by page number of the text, not by quoting the verses or anything like that. Okay, so and then just one more, just for the sake. Through sexual misconduct, sentient beings are led to hell, animal, preta, then born among humans, 2 maturations will be manifestly achieved. Unreliable servants and a wife with one's rivals. So I can't remember how the Dashabhumika, how the 84,000 translated, but it seems to be as a result of sexual misconduct. Here it's not talking about the habitual result, obviously, which would mean, again, engaging in sexual misconduct, but it's saying that one's servants will be unreliable, and where is it? Sorry. And one will have a wife with one's rivals, or you might read it as a wife who is your rival. You know, it's not exactly clear. I'm not sure how the Dashabhumika, how the 84,000 decided to translate, but it's a little bit ambiguous in the Tibetan. So that would mean, you know, you have a quarrelsome wife, right? So I won't go through the other ones. You can take a look at that that translation, and maybe you might have some questions next time. Mikhail, you have a thought?
Yeah, thank you. About the 4 different effects of karma, do they ripen always at the same time?
No.
And you can have one karma action done, which leads to a specific life, rebirth, and the other effects can ripen in another life later?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's say, for instance,
Okay.
if you're born in hell as a result of the maturation result, you're not probably, the other 3 results of the 4 will take place when you're born in the upper realms, principally as a human, right? So you would have the result similar to the cause as an action. That means you would habitually do the same kind of thing that threw you down. If it was killing, you would kill again very easily. If it was covetousness, you would have a great deal of desire and have that same mind come up very habitually and so forth. You would have an effect similar to the cause as an experience, such as having a short life, being killed yourself, and so forth. And you would have the environmental effect. So the environmental effect of sexual misconduct is said to be born in a place, or to live in a place which is very dirty and smelly, almost like sewers outside your door and so forth. And Maybe some of us experienced some things like that when we lived in India for some time, with the flow of sewerage going by and everything, or just being muddy where you are. You can't get anywhere without getting muddied up and so forth. So those will take place they don't even have to take place in the same human lifetime. It might be that part of it comes in one lifetime, you kill very easily, and in another lifetime, you experience part of that effect in that you are killed yourself, or your medicine doesn't work well, and so forth. And in another lifetime, there may be the being born is sort of like the lesser part of it, the environmental result, being born in a place that's very dangerous and worrisome and so forth. Jennifer.
Thank you, Venerable George. I remember a long time ago, I received a teaching about karma, and it might have been the result of divisive speech, but having like a bad environment. And it just got me thinking about like global warming, for instance. So a lot of times, we focus on carbon as the cause of global warming and focus on all those conditions. But I'm just curious, and His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, focuses on that as well, and environmental stewardship. But then I'm also curious about the karmic aspect of it. For instance, to be in a world system where the production of carbon leads to, weather disasters. And I've always struggled with trying to understand the conditional part of it and focusing on that versus the karmic cause of that. And I'm wondering if you could kindly elaborate more.
So the full explanation of how these four effects ripen are not mentioned here in the Dashabhumika, right? It's just saying that there'll be two. It's not quite clear what the two means. I think Jeffrey Hopkins' translation is his in parenthetical comment that two results. It means result in the lower realms, being born in the lower realms, and then as a human, unfortunate human. But I've been trying to find this last week some commentaries that go through all the other ones, and I'm today supposedly Geshe Nawan Darge's book. What's it called? Tibetan. What is it called? Do any of you know the Tibetan tradition of mental development, which we used to use in the old days? I know that has all of those sections in great detail. That's arriving today at my mailbox. So next week I should be able to explain, what the environmental environmental result of each of these 10 are. So that would be useful. But certainly stealing, the environmental result of that is to have the resources where you are to be waning. Like say in your orchard, the trees won't give as much fruit, and the crops in the ground will have less nutrition and so forth as a result of having stolen. So we can go over that next week. Okay, I'll try to bring that up. Okay. Okay, so that section ends. It is these points from that sutra that Chandrakirti summarizes here. Then, in the friendly letter by Nagarjuna, he wrote the precious garland, but he also wrote a friendly letter to another king, and that is translated here by Jimpa. Pray, cultivate morality that is undamaged, not low in esteem, unadulterated and untainted, like the earth that supports everything, both moving and stationary. Morality is taught to be the basis supporting all qualities. Or as Jeffrey translates, you should observe ethics that are not low, morality that is not low, not degenerate, immoral actions, not mixed and not polluted. So not mixed means not mixed with, your morality shouldn't be mixed with bad motivations and so forth. Ethics are said to be the base of all attainments, as the earth is for all that does move and does not move. This common kind of thing. So what doesn't move, trees don't move. You might say the leaves move, but they don't, the trees don't pull themselves up from the roots and scatter somewhere else in general. This is talking, rocks and so forth are immovable. That which is movable means animate beings and so forth. So thus, training in morality has been stated to be most important. Are we all together? Okay. So then, these statements above have been made in the context of the second ground, but in terms of the actual practice, even bodhisattvas on the beginner stage need to engage in the practice of morality. So the beginner stage means even before reaching a bhumi. So on the path of accumulation and the path of preparation. One must, for instance, contemplate the crucial ethic or morality of applying restraint against the 10 non-virtues, guarding even against the motives that give rise to them. So if you go through the 10 non-virtues, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and so forth, and you see they are motivated by delusions, you want to try to erode those delusions, apply antidotes, even if you haven't realized emptiness yet. There are temporal antidotes to the motivations that can motivate you to kill and steal, and you want to try to even guarding even against motives that give rise to them, those motivations. Just as stated in the lines above, wealth through generosity is found, up to the cause is none other than morality. So Jimpa, in one of the rare instances, has better translation here. Jeffrey, at that point, translates it a little bit as though he didn't understand what was going on. This is talking about verses 4 to 7 in the second chapter, verse 2:4 to verse 2:5, verse 2:6, verse 2:7. That's as Jimpa has here, correct. And every time one trains in morality, one must do so on the basis of being sustained by the wisdom that realizes things without objectifying them. Right? How do we say here? Yeah, okay. So then, in addition, mere intellectual understanding and familiarization on a few occasions will get one nowhere, right? Just having intellectually understanding these things and maybe familiarizing on a few occasions, that's not going to cut the mustard. One must contemplate these points on a sustained and regular basis. If one cultivates familiarity on a sustained and regular basis, then the time will come when one's mind engages these with a natural ease. Even the practice of the bodhisattva's deeds, which when one first hears of them or tries to engage in them, may make one disheartened, right? When you hear about bodhisattvas giving up their body or giving up their family or doing all of these amazing things, may make one disheartened. And even those deeds that our teacher, the Buddha, was not able to put into practice for a long time, you will be able to do if you you look at these things in a sustained way. You familiarize with them in detail. So that's what that means. That from this point now, even though we're not on the second bhumi, we don't have the surpassing practice of morality. We have to try to put into practice abstention, this first kind of morality, Mahayana morality, of abstaining from negative deeds. So we have to recognize, we have to get rid of our anger, which could cause us to kill. We have to get rid of we have to reduce our attachment, which can cause us to steal, and so forth. If you do that now and you apply the antidotes again and again, that's a great preparation for realizing emptiness, because you realize that the antidotes themselves can cause the afflictions to go down. Once we realize emptiness, the afflictions will be reduced by the power of that universal antidote, kind of like the universal detergent that cleans all the stains, Hopkins says, since merely understanding or familiarizing with these only a few times brings nothing, these meanings should be contemplated continuously. If one familiarizes with them continuously, they will spontaneously engage. One will spontaneously engage in the modes of the training of the Bodhisattva's deeds, even those deeds that generate mental discomfort when first heard of. Like, oh man, how could I do that? Give away all my stuff. And those that our teacher, the Buddha, could not practice for a long time. So even Shakyamuni Buddha himself, as he progressed along the Bodhisattva path, there were things that he couldn't practice at first. But if we familiarize with these things, we will be able to. So then comes a quote from The Praise to the One with Infinite Qualities. This is, Paul, have you ever heard of that text before?
No, I was just looking it up and I see it's not in the main part of the canon. It's in Atisha's supplementary texts.
Oh, well, no, it's in the Tengyur, in the section of praises, in the stotra. So this is the Guna Yanta Stotra, Yonden Tayepa Toba. Yonden is usually what we means good qualities or guna, and Tayepa is Yanta.
He's got a different name there. He's Triratna Dasha.
Yeah, so this is the author of this text is variously called Ratna Dasha or Triratna Dasha. What's the difference between Ratna and Triratna? Do you know?
Well, Ratna would just be jewel, and
jewels
Triratna would be the 3 jewels.
Right. So most of in the Kangyur catalogs they put it as Triratna Dasha. Maybe they abbreviated sometimes Ratna Dasha. So this was a Buddhist scholar, practitioner who was just about the time of Dignaga, maybe a little before, because this text, Guna Paryanta Stotra, or the praise of endless qualities, as Hopkins translates it, this was commented on by Dignaga. Dignaga wrote a commentary to this text. And so Triratna Dasha wrote a commentary to Dignaga's commentary to the 8,000 verse. So Dignaga wrote a commentary to this text that we're talking about, this praise text by Triratna Dasha, and Triratna Dasha himself wrote a commentary to Dignaga's commentary to the 8,000 verse Prajnaparamita Sutra. So they had some kind of mutual respect for one another. So here's the verse. Even just hearing about this causes beings great distress. Those deeds that even you did not engage in for a long time, through familiarity in time, these deeds came to you naturally. Thus, these qualities are hard to enhance without familiarity. So I like Hopkins translation a little bit better. Those deeds which, when heard of, cause discomfort or harm the worldly beings find disheartening, as I said before, in which you could not practice for a long time, you meaning Shakyamuni Buddha, will in time become spontaneous for all those who are familiar with them. Ones who are not so familiar will find it hard to increase attainments. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Just to give you an idea of the context, there is no translation of this praise by Triratna Dasha in English that I've been able to find, but I pulled up the Tibetan, and just to give you an idea, the verse that comes right before this is verse that's being quoted here is verse 27 in this text. There are 51 verses in this praise the endless qualities. It's talking about the qualities of Buddha, right? So this is verse 27. So verse 26 that came just before this said something like this. This is my translation. Just as you strove to distribute to those who asked, wealth, servants, wives, and even one's flesh and life, and in addition, even lovely young children with stainless bodies like an autumn moon, thus your firm mind arose familiar with giving. So you can see the translation there. I think Doris put up, where's Doris? There, Doris put up on the Facebook page this translation. So in Dignaga's commentary to this verse that I just read you about giving up one's wealth, servants, wives, even one's own flesh and life, even lovely young children with stainless bodies like an autumn full moon. This in Dignaga's commentary says, didn't I translate that in English? Oh, I didn't translate it in English. So he's saying that this is talking about the perfection of generosity, which makes sense, giving your body and your life and your children and so forth. Then the verse verse 27 is talking about the perfection of morality. Verse 28 says, just as doctors, in order to remove spirits in those possessed by them, spirit possession, they beat and speak harshly to the spirits, but do not beat the actual person possessed, right? Does that make sense? What was it? Rosemary's Baby? I can't remember. What was it? What was it? The things about possession.
The Exorcist.
Exorcist. You speak harshly to the. When you get the attention of the spirit, you speak harshly to it and maybe even beat the spirit, but you're not trying to harm the person. Thus, you too, you Buddha, acted without mercy toward the afflictions themselves, while you yourself were compassionate to the afflicted migrators. So this is talking about in Dignaga's commentary. He says that's talking about the perfection of patience. Okay, so just a little background about that. So that finishes that section. That section was it was a long section. Praising or proclaiming the morality, that morality is the cause of both higher rebirth and definite goodness. Okay, now the next section, an analogy or example for how the Bodhisattva does not mix with forces opposing morality. Right? Or as Jeffrey says, example of non-mixture with what is not conducive to ethics. So the famous verse, it says, just as the ocean and a corpse do not remain together, and just as good fortune and calamity do not keep company, Likewise, the great ones who are governed by morality do not wish for the company of immorality. Or as Hopkins says, just as the ocean is incompatible with a corpse, and just as prosperity is incompatible with calamity. Does that make sense? If you have prosperity or good luck, that seems to be incompatible with calamity. So a great being subdued by ethics does not wish to live with faulty ethics. And the commentary, Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary says, just as the great ocean, because the obsessively clean Naga spirits live there, casts ashore by its tides all the corpses and does not remain together with the carcasses. Have you ever heard that before? Kind of Buddha, the kind of, Indian lore that it's the Nagas that cause that, in the rivers and in the ocean. If you throw a body in the ocean, they will be brought in by the tides and wash up on the sand and so forth, the rocks, whatever, as a result of the Nagas who can't, the Nagas are extremely clean and they don't like any kind of pollutions. That's why if you happen to make pee-pee on the tree where a Naga lives, you make some kind of pollution, or you throw your garbage there or something like that, that can cause some kind of harm to you. And just as the perfect factors of good fortune do not keep company with Lady Black-Ear, and then he writes calamity, likewise the great ones of the second ground who are governed by thoroughly pure morality do not wish for the company of immorality. Nadine, what do you think? Have you heard that before? Lady Black-Ear, have you ever heard that expression?
No, I'm wondering about this. No, I've never heard.
So in the Tibetan, it says, Nga Nagma. Na means ear. There's two different words, Nga and Nga, ear and nose. What are the different spellings, Paul? Do you know?
Yeah, it's the SNA versus RNA. Yeah, Sanatana, Ranatana.
If it has a S suffix over the Nga, it means nose. That's how we remember, because nose has an S in it. If it has a R above it rather than an S, the Ratak, not Ratak, was it?
Ratatana.
The one that's superscribed on it. As ear has an R, that means ear. So here it says Lady Black-Ear. So I had some more commentary about this. So that in Sanskrit, that's Kalikanika, which is, if you look in the dictionary, it kind of means misfortune, predicted as a consequence of having black ears. So if someone, supposedly in Indian lore, if you had black ears, that meant you were an unfortunate person. Have you ever heard that? I think I asked you, Snehi, you said your friends in Delhi said it was the opposite, that was a good sign, right?
Yeah, because Lakshmi, one of the forms of Lakshmi is having black ears, and she's called Kalakarni. So when I ask them, they're like, no, it's not a misfortune, it's a blessing.
Okay, so interesting. So yeah, Kalakani is a name of Lakshmi. But anyway, in the text, it explains, Chandrakirti explained that the black-eared is a synonym of inauspicious. So this is trying to give an explanation by some examples of why the bodhisattvas don't abide with immorality. I mean, they're like the Nagas that are so clean, they get rid of the corpses. So the bodhisattvas on the second bhumi are so scrupulous that they avoid immorality and so forth. This above reference does not contradict a statement in the commentary to the 400 stanzas. So you remember Chandrakirti wrote a word commentary to fundamental wisdom, the Prasanapada, clearly worded, that some of you said didn't seem so clearly worded to you. He wrote the meaning commentary to the fundamental wisdom that we're studying, Madhyamaka Vatara. He wrote a commentary to the 60 stanzas and of Nagarjuna, and he wrote a commentary to Arya Deva's 400 stanzas. So this is talking about Chandrakirti's commentary to the 400 stanzas. And that there's a statement there that says, where Lady Auspiciousness lives, without doubt, Lady Black-eared, Kalakarna, can be as well. So you might say, well, you just said that you can't have auspiciousness and calamity at the same time. But there the statement refers to two individuals bearing those names. But in this context, in our text here, Lady Black-eared is a term for misfortune. Okay, no big deal, just kind of lore. Sean kept thinking of black, what is it? I kept thinking of black juice running down Rudy Giuliani's face. Okay. Okay.
Venerable, I have to go now to visit my friend, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah. So we'll try to make some prayers. He's in his last.
Yes, he has decided to take himself off life support on Monday, so I'm going to go do some practices for him.
What is his name?
Israel,
Israel,
sir.
sir.
Stephen knows him.
Okay, yeah. We'll try to make some dedication prayers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now the next section, the divisions of the perfection of morality. And verse 9 says, who relinquishes? I mean, what was it? Relinquishes means what? What you forsake, you give up, you relinquish killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. So it's talking about the agents. They say, who relinquishes the negative actions? What and in relation to whom? When any of these three is objectified, is grasped as inherently existent, such morality is described as a mundane perfection. Free of attachment to these three, the practice is supramundane. Morality will be supramundane if you perceive, that you yourself, who is abstaining from these negative actions, doesn't inherently exist. That the action itself doesn't inherently exist. And the person with respect to whom you are abstaining doesn't inherently exist. Well, let's say, for instance, stealing. Is there a person necessarily there? Here it might be the object that you're stealing doesn't inherently exist. Then the commentary says, when someone is incapable of seizing the seeds of objectifying the three as real, that means when one is not able to cut off grasping at these three as inherently existent. Let me see how Jeffrey translates that here. Divisions, yeah. If one is unable to put an end to the seeds of apprehending true existence of the three spheres, the object of abandonment, which is to be forsaken, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, the person by whom it is forsaken, that is you yourself, the agent, and the sentient being with regard to whom it is being forsaken. So killing and so forth, that would obviously be another human being. But here it's not talking about, like, say, if you're stealing, maybe that would also be, you have to understand that the object that you're stealing doesn't inherently exist. Stealing means taking what is not given, right? So that would imply an owner of that. But even taking things that are ownerless is considered taking what is not given. So one has to be careful about that. If that very morality is free of attachment to these three spheres in the form of perceiving them as real, if one is, devoid of this attachment that's grasping them to be inherently existent, truly existent, that is to say, if it is sustained by uncontaminated wisdom, realizing them as not perceivable. Remember, we talk about migme sewe. Migma means not perceivable or not objectifying them, not believing that they are truly existent. If in that case it is a super mundane perfection. Hence, by this distinction, morality is twofold. So if you divide the pizza of morality, just cutting it in half, one way is, mundane morality, and the other is super mundane morality. Then a conclusion stating the qualities of the ground. So this is verse 10. This is the last verse of this chapter. Just as moonlight on an autumn night, the verse itself says, this bodhisattva born of the radiant moon of morality, who is not of cyclic existence, yet is its glory, the stainless. I mean, it's talking about the second ground bodhisattva, right? Who, like moonlight on an autumn night, removes the pain from the minds of sentient beings. Or as Jeffrey translates, like the light of an autumn moon, the stainless, means the stainless bodhisattva, second grounder, arising from the moon of a conqueror's child, though not worldly, the glory of the world, removes the mental distress of migrators, although not worldly. So Jimpa says, who is not of cyclic existence. Gyalse dawa jungsi minsepa. So it's not saying that this second ground bodhisattva is out of cyclic existence. It means that they are not a worldly being, right? So the commentary says, just as moonlight on an autumn night is free of the obscuring taints and helps relieve people's agony of heat. So the autumn moon was also referred to in this verse in the praise of infinite quality. So the autumn moon is cooling, the full moon of the autumn after the hot season, the autumn moon cooling at night is free from the obscuring taints and helps relieve people's agony of heat. Likewise, this bodhisattva born of the radiant moon of morality, the second ground bodhisattva, who is free of the stains of immorality, the one who bears its name, the stainless, who is true to its meaning, he too removes the pain engendered by morality from the minds of sentient beings. So they not only remove the immorality from their own minds, but they remove the immorality from the minds of other sentient beings. As this bodhisattva on the second ground does not belong to the class of those who revolve in the cycle of existence, he is not of cyclic existence, yet he is its glory. So he does not belong to the class of those who revolve in cyclic existence? How can that be? Isn't he still in cyclic existence? Snehi, you think he's still in cyclic existence?
Should, yeah.
Still in psychic existence. I wonder if this is what you explained to us, ones that they can choose where they want to take rebirth. They're not under the force of karma, though.
Maybe that's interpretation. Let me read what Hopkins translated here. Just as stainless autumn moonlight relieves creatures from the discomfort caused by heat. So the second ground, the stainless, removes the distress of migrators generated by faulty ethics. The stainless arises from the moon of a conqueror's child, who is a second grounder and is so called because he has the light of pure ethics free from the stains of the faulty. Because a second grounder is not included among those who wander in cyclic existence, he is not mundane, not of cyclic existence. What do we say in the Bible? Being in the world, but not of the world, right? This is kind of a little implication like that. It doesn't mean that he no longer is in cyclic existence, but he is not impelled, as Snehi was implying, it's not impelled by his karma and klesha in the same way as earlier, right? When one is an ordinary being. This is because all marvelous attainments flow from this bodhisattva, and he, through the power of prayer petitions for the sake of sentient beings, has attained the sublime cause of universal monarchy over the four continents. So the Jimpa's translation says, just as moonlight on an autumn night is free from the obscuring taints and helps relieve people's agony of heat, likewise this bodhisattva born of the radiant moon of morality, the second ground, which is free of the stains of immorality, the one who bears its name, the stainless, who is true to its meaning, he too removes the pain engendered by morality from the minds of sentient beings. As this bodhisattva on the second ground does not belong to the class of those who revolve in cyclic existence, he is not of cyclic existence, yet he is its glory. So one has to understand that it doesn't mean that he is out of cyclic existence. It's just, you say, not of the world, because he has this understanding of emptiness and is no longer impelled in taking rebirth because of karma and klesha. This is because all perfect qualities follow for such a bodhisattva, and because he has obtained, through the power of his aspirational prayers aimed for all sentient beings, the excellent causes of becoming a universal ruler reigning over the four continents. Do you remember when at the beginning of the text we talked about there were four special qualities of the bhumis that distinguish them from one another, and one of them was having 100 qualities on the first ground, 1,000 qualities on the second ground, and so forth. And one of the qualities was on the first ground, being born as a universal monarch of Jambu-Dipa, I think, the first, of the earth, or you could say the southern continent. And on the second ground here, being a universal monarch of all four continents. Do you remember that? Maybe you can go back and check. Okay. So here, this concludes, applause. This concludes exposition of the second ground of the ultimate awakening mind, from illuminating the intent and exposition of entering the middle way. So this is Lama Tsongkhapa's end of the second bhumi, or second mind generation. In Chandrakirti's text, he doesn't call them chapters, they're called mind generations, or, meaning ultimate mind generation, ultimate bodhicitta. So the first ground is called the first ultimate bodhicitta, you might say, or the first mind generation. Second ground is called second mind generation. Now the third ground, the luminous. The third ground, the luminous, this has four sections. The etymology of the name, which is more precise than Jeffrey's translation, where he says describing the ground. So it says Netsik, which usually means etymology of the name. So why is it called the luminous? the qualities of the ground, the second outline, its attributes, the distinctive characteristics of the first three perfections. Remember the perfection of generosity, morality, patience, right? There's something special about those, and a conclusion stating the qualities of the ground. So first outline is the etymology of the name of the ground, which is the basis. What's its name? The luminous, right? So the text says, because the fire burning off fuels of all phenomena produce light here, this third ground is called the luminous. Here, the child of the Tathagata perceives a copper-colored glow like that of a sunrise. So Jimpa's made an error there. He says the son of the Tathagata. It actually says the son of the Sugata. What's the difference between a Sugata and a Tathagata? Toby, do you know? You don't know? Okay, that's good. Nadine, do you know the difference?
I thought there were no difference. Both means Buddha.
Yeah, they're epithets of the Buddha. Tathagata means one thus gone, or one gone to thusness. And Sugata means one gone to what? Dewa Shekpa. Gone to joy.
Bliss.
Gone to bliss, you could say, Dewa Shekpa. Or well gone. Su in Sanskrit, the prefix kind of meaning like something, making it special, well gone. Or so anyway, it says Sugata. And in his commentary below, he also says son of the Tathagata, but it says Dewar Shekbe Sebo, that we're going to come in a moment. So it's talking about the son of the Sugata, but it means the same thing, the son of the Buddha. So the commentary says the third ground of the Bodhisattva is called the luminous. So in, let's see here, where did we say? Chepa, right? Means light. Chepa means making. So making light, producing light, luminous. The third ground of the Bodhisattva is called the luminous. If asked, why is it called the luminous? Why? Just any of you have children, you say, why do you call it the luminous? It is true to the meaning of this name. When the Bodhisattva attains the third ground, the fire of gnosis, that means their wisdom, right? Their wisdom fire, burning off all the fuels of phenomena or objects of knowledge, a fire that has the capacity to pacify all dualistic elaborations within meditative equipoise, produces light here. So it sounds simple, but it's some kind of complicated thing going on here. So on the third ground, the Bodhisattva in post-meditation, when they arise from meditation, they perceive a copper-colored glow. And that doesn't mean with their eyes. It's not like, like if you have jaundice or something like that, you see some kind of yellow superimposed on the snow mountain or something. It's talking about a mental apprehension. Same way in Tantra, when you talk about the death evolution, there are mental signs that take place, like the mirage-like appearance and smoke-like appearance, firefly-like appearance, and appearance like a dying butter lamp and so forth. Some of you have heard like that in the death evolution. So that takes place to your mental consciousness. I think the same thing here in post-meditation. In why would that not arise in the meditative equipoise? Why would that copper-colored light not arise in meditative equipoise? Anna, do you have any idea?
Thank you, Venerable George. Can you ask that one more time?
Yeah, so here it's talking about a copper-colored glow. Here, the child of the Sugata, Chimpasis Tathagata, perceives a copper-colored glow like that of a sunrise. And this means in post-meditation, they see that. Why would it not appear in the meditative equipoise on emptiness?
I'm really not sure.
All right, yeah, that's a good. Yeah, there's no reason. you know, who has an idea? Anyone?
Is it possible that in meditative equipoise you just don't have a that kind of conceptuality, that you're not perceiving any kind of differences in that way?
Yeah. In meditative equipoise, no conventional phenomena appear, right?
Right.
There's the meditational equipoise here doesn't mean meditational equipoise like ordinary person has meditational equipoise on appearance of a Buddha, that they're concentrating on. Here is talking about the direct realization of emptiness. When the Bodhisattva on the third ground in meditational equipoise directly realizing emptiness, no conventional phenomena appear to them. It's not just exclusive to them. And the first bhumi, the second bhumi, when you have a direct realization of emptiness, there is no conventional phenomena appearing to your mind. Right? Make sense? How about on the last part of the path of preparation, when one has realized emptiness with the union of calm abiding and penetrative insight, one hasn't realized it directly, but one has the conceptual realization. Does any conventional phenomena appear to that mind, Don?
I think prior to the path of seeing, it could still appear, yeah.
The conventional phenomena, what appears is not other things, not like an orange glow, but what appears is the mental image itself, which is a conventional phenomena. So you're understanding emptiness via the mental image, right? The mental image is appearing to you. You're knowing emptiness correctly. It's not a direct realization. When that mental image disappears, then you have a direct realization. But while the mental image is there, there's conventional phenomena appearing to you. So when the Bodhisattva attains the third ground, the fire of gnosis, burning off all the fuel of phenomena, a fire that has the capacity to pacify all dualistic elaborations within meditative equipoise, produces light here. So Hopkins translates, because when the third ground is attained, the fire of wisdom, burning all the fuel of objects of knowledge, arises along with a light which by nature is able to extinguish all elaborations of duality during meditative equipoise. So in the meditative equipoise, this light is just the fact that all elaborations, all dualistic thoughts are eliminated. It's kind of like the meaning of clear light, right? Geshe Zopa, when he taught us this, he said, all 10 bhumis have their own fire. The Yeshe Gime, the wisdom, the fire of Gnosis fire. During the meditative equipoise, it means that the dualistic appearances dissolve away. So we could say Ninang Godup. They dissolve into empty. But here there's a special sign in the post-meditation, in the jetop. Usually in when we talk about the different periods of the bodhisattva on the grounds, we say their whole existence is into three kinds: meditative equipoise, post-meditation, and that which is neither of the two. But that's just a sort of like you need to have a third kind of session to talk about when you don't mention whether it's meditative equipoise or post-meditation. Everything is either meditational equipoise on emptiness or not. When you're not in meditative equipoise, it's called jetop, subsequent attainment. So this special sign, this reddish light comes in post-meditation, not during the meditation. During the meditation, the light is talking, not reddish, but it means that you have this clear light experience of no elaborations of duality. You have just a realization of emptiness. Making sense? Anyone confused?
But you said you don't see it with your eyes. Then where is this color?
Right. So I gave an example. Those of you who may have heard about the practice of Tantra, or say in the death evolution, you don't have to talk about Tantra. When we die, you're getting close to death, and the earth element absorbs. What that means is the winds within your body, the prana, which supports solidity, they begin to subside. And at that point, a person looks more, what's the word, emaciated, sort of like shriveled up. At that point, there's an inner sign to the mental consciousness. It doesn't come to your eye consciousness. There's a sign of sort of wavering, like a mirage. That's called the mirage-like vision. So that doesn't occur to your eyes. That occurs to your mental consciousness. And if you're an ordinary person completely obsessed with worry and other things, you're not even going to notice it. So, but the meditator who's calmed these other thoughts at the time of death, they would be able to notice, oh, I'm getting close to death. There's the mirage-like appearance. And then later, it might be minutes or hours later, there would be an appearance of a smoke-like appearance to the mental consciousness when the water element absorbs. So it doesn't appear, this appearance of smoke, like incense floating in a room, that doesn't appear to your eye consciousness, it appears to your mental consciousness. And again, it could go unnoticed if you're like an ordinary person, you're thinking other things, and there's something in your mind is there, but you're not noticing it. So that's what's being talked about here. So this copper-colored glow is something that's observed that the bodhisattva and the third bhumi would notice in their mental consciousness. Okay? Sean, are you okay with it? Okay. So here at this point, the child of the Sugata, Chippa says, Tathagata is a Sugata, who has generated the third ground of the awakening mind, perceives the light of gnosis with a copper-colored glow, like the glow that appears at sunrise. Well, also the glow that appears at sunset, right? You know what I'm talking about? When the sun is getting, when the sun is just about to rise, before you see the light of the sun, there's kind of a copper-colored reddish light. What's the saying? Red sky at night. Anyone know? Mariner's delight.
I always heard sailor's delight.
Okay, well, mariner said, red sky at night, mariner's delight. Red sky in the morning.
Sailors take warning.
Sailors, mariners take warning. Right? So some kind of thing. So we talk about the light that appears, that has those sayings have to do with the amount of moisture in the air that's scattered by the sunlight and so forth, that it has some significance, but that's not what's being talked about here. So this third ground bodhisattva experiences this copper-colored glow, like the glow that appears at sunrise. That is to say, during post-meditation, not in the meditation session, in the post-meditation periods on this ground, the bodhisattva experiences the dawning of pervasive red or orange light. Here, Tibetan is marser, like the color of Manjushri. When it says orange, it means yellowish red or reddish yellow. Copper colored, in other words. Thus, the precious garland says, so this is a verse from the Precious Garland by Nagarjuna, right? The third ground is the luminous, for the pacifying light of gnosis dawns, absorptions and clairvoyance have arisen. Doesn't mean that before that there were no meditative absorptions. It certainly were, and there was clairvoyance before that. It's talking about something special at this time. And attachment and aversion have utterly ceased. That means the attachment and aversion of the desire realm. It doesn't mean all attachment and aversion. And as a fruitional effect of these, the bodhisattva will engage especially in forbearance and diligence. So, or we say patience, right? What did Jimpa translate this? This on the third ground. Usually we talk about the perfection of patience. Jimpa translates it as forbearance, which has some logic also. Tibetan word is sopa, right? Like Lama patience, Lama sopa. Where am I? Oh, here we go. Absorptions and clairvoyance have arisen, and attachment and aversion have utterly ceased. And as a fruitional effect of these, he will engage especially in forbearance and diligence, in patience and enthusiastic perseverance. So where does the special practice of enthusiastic perseverance come? On which bhumi? Do you know, Jennifer?
The third. I mean, it's the third perfection. So
No,
therefore,
the fourth. The third one is patience.
oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, I saw joyous effort. Sorry, fourth.
Capacity, morality, patience, and then enthusiastic perseverance. So why is it talking about enthusiastic perseverance here? So there's some more detail to be given. As one progresses along the path, there's a surpassing practice on this path, surpassing practice of patience or forbearance. But there's also some dawning of sort of like some anticipation of a special enthusiastic perseverance, or what is he called, diligence, that one will experience as a surpassing perfection in the fourth bhumi. There's some kind of practice of that coming here. Also, this light of wisdom, which is presaging, this yellow, say copper-colored light, is kind of like an omen of the fact that you are going to eventually be able to burn up the objects of knowledge in post-meditation. When would that take place? When would you start to burn up the obstructions to omniscience? You all know. On the eighth bhumi, right? Before that, you're still eliminating, ceasing, abandoning the obstructions to liberation. On the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, you start to be able to eliminate the obstructions to omniscience, among which there are other obstructions to omniscience, but one of them is the appearance of phenomena, conventional phenomena, as inherently existent. Right now, when we open our eyes, We have no choice. Phenomena appear to us as inherently existent. The only time for an ordinary person like ourselves that phenomena, there's no appearance of inherent existence is when we're in direct realization of emptiness in meditative equipoise. Right? At that point, only emptiness is appearing, no conventional phenomena. So this copper-colored light is kind of like an omen that eventually we're going to be able to burn up the fuel of objects of knowledge. What that means is the obstructions to omniscience, the appearance that phenomena are inherently existent. That's not happening now, but it's kind of like some anticipation of that's coming up. This great celestial being is most learned. He has undone the attachment to the desire realm. So the Jeffrey Hopkins translation of that. If you want to, this is a very good translation. There are other translations of the Precious Garland, but this one that Jeffrey Hopkins himself did is very worthy. These are verses 445 and 446 from the Precious Garland. So Jeffrey translates it a little bit differently than Jimpa. The third ground is called the luminous. They both call it luminous. Okay. So the third ground is called the luminous because the pacifying light of wisdom appears. The concentrations and clairvoyances are generated. Again, that doesn't mean for the first time, but there's some special power of samten, of the perfection of meditation or concentration, and some special kind of clairvoyances. While desire has halted, while desire and hatred are extinguished completely. Are they extinguished completely? No. What it means is that the attachment and hatred of the desire realm are completely, the innate afflictions of the desire realm are ceased. Remember the innate afflictions? Were the innate afflictions abandoned on the path of seeing, Mikhail?
No. Only intellectually acquired ones on the first ground.
Right. On
And
the
second.
On the second ground, we begin to abandon some of them, but on the third ground, the attachment and hatred of the desire realm, the innate afflictions, those innate attachment and hatred are abandoned. So if you just read the verses, you might think they're free of all attachment and hatred, but not yet. Then the second part, verse 446 says, the title of the book is Buddhist Advice for Living and Liberation. That's the title that Jeffrey Hopkins gave to Nagarjuna's Precious Garland, his translation. If you're interested, I think Stephen's studying Tibetan. It also has the Tibetan of the text in the end. Some of you may be interested in that. Paul, did you have a hand in editing that book in the day?
Not editing, but I think I typeset the Tibetan.
Okay, it's good, very good. So the verse 446 says, through the maturation of these qualities, this is just Jeffrey's translation of what you have in your book, but Jimpa's translation. Through the maturation of these qualities, the Bodhisattva practices supremely the deeds of patience or forbearance, as Jimpa says, and putting an end to desire completely becomes a great wise king of the gods. It says, which is implying Indra. So my question is this. Jimpa said, this great celestial being is most learned. Later on, it will talk about that he is like Indra. So of those qualities of rebirth, is this talking about those qualities of rebirth of the bodhisattva? On the first ground, the bodhisattva could be born as this or that and so forth? No, it's not talking about those. This is talking about something different. So let's just read this, and this is where we'll start next time. I'm going to highlight this so I can find it. Oh, okay. So where are we at this point? Which page in Jimpa's text are we?
130.
130. And in Hopkins' text?
205.
205. Thank you, Don. Okay, so this is where we'll start next time. But just to say, the qualities of the ground, which are its attributes, this is 4 parts, showing how patience or forbearance is superior on this ground. Remember, we have a special practice or superior practice of the perfection of generosity on the first ground, the superior quality practice of the perfection of morality on the second ground. Here we have a superior special practice of, or superior practice on the third ground. Then second outline, how to cultivate other types of forbearance or patience. So the word forbearance kind of makes sense because there is a patience or forbearance of practicing the Dharma. That means, putting up with the effort it takes in understanding emptiness. If you don't have that kind of patience, you're not going to study and meditate and forbear in that. Third division, the third outline is the divisions of the perfection of forbearance or patience. And then the fourth outline, the other pure qualities that arise on this ground. Okay. So how are we doing? Anyone have any questions, doubts? Stephen, there you go.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable George. I'm just wondering a little bit about this, the appearance, which is like the color of clouds at the time of sunrise and sunset.
No, not the color of the clouds. Could be completely clear sky.
Yeah.
Sunrise, there's kind of a, before the sun is risen, before you see any part of the sun, the sky looks kind of copper colored. That's what it's talking about.
Okay, why I ask that is I'm just wondering where that comes from. I don't think it's in the Ratnavali, and I'm looking at a text by Jason Losang Dadrin, which is a brief presentation of grounds and paths of the perfection vehicle. And so this is what we used for grounds and paths on the FPMT basic program.
Right.
It just has this note beside the phrase I just read that says the translation was doubtful there.
And what was the translation you just read? Can you read it again?
Yeah. There dawns an appearance which is like the color of clouds at the time of sunrise and sunset.
So I'm not sure in that text if the person added clouds, it may be.
So what was added was the color and at the time, those are in square brackets, but it looks like that person who was Jules Levinson just directly translated clouds of sunrise and sunset.
So here in general, it's not talking about clouds because you can have this copper colored glow. It could be that in that text, the clouds could take on that color also. So they, sort of extend up. If there's clouds up in the sky, they also take on that glow. But here it's just talking about that color, copper color. it pervades the sky. Even the blue sky sort of takes on that reddish yellow or copper colored glow at that time.
Yeah, so venerable. It's mentioned here by Chandrakirti, but like, is there a kind of a root text that has that? Because I mean, you know, they also quote Maitreya's ornament for the Mahayana Sutras, and the color isn't mentioned there. And also Nagarjuna's praise.
What does it say? And what does it say there?
Ornament for the Mahayana Sutras says, because of causing the great illumination of doctrine, it is the luminous.
Mm-hmm.
And in Nagarjuna's praise of the element of qualities, it says, having stopped well the nets of afflictions, the very clear stainless wisdom clears away immeasurable darkness, whereby it's called the luminous.
Yeah, that's why it's called the luminous. But here it's adding the fact, it's not saying why it's called luminous, that has this copper colored glow. It's saying that this is a byproduct of this special kind of gnosis that is generated here that clears away the elaborations of duality in meditative equipoise. So you have even before that, there was no duality on the first ground in meditative equipoise on emptiness. That means no appearance of inherent existence. On the second ground, same thing. But here there's something special. And in post-meditation, to the mind, the mental consciousness of that person, there is this copper-colored light that arises. So that may not be mentioned in the briefer explanations in the Abhisamayalankara, or what was the other text you said? Ranavali or something? You said, or
It's the praise of the Dharmadhatu.
oh, praise of the
Dharmadhatu.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Paul.
Dr. Paul. Okay, so Jennifer, what do you think?
Thank you, Venerable George. Just a quick clarifying question. At what bhumi does the bodhisattva cease to be born in psychic existence due to karma and delusion?
So it's definite on the first bhumi, right? But even before that, on the what is it on the, I guess, the patience level of the path of preparation, due to the fact that they have an intellectual, a conceptual understanding of emptiness conjoined with tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, the manifest delusions that would cause the ripening of karmic seeds at the time of death are subdued. So from that point on, they don't take rebirth due to karma and delusion, uncontrolled karma and delusion. But on the path of seeing, because the intellectually formed craving and grasping are suppressed, are abandoned. They're not just suppressed, they're abandoned. It's the intellectually formed ones that are strong enough to cause the ripening of that karma. So those are abandoned at that point. That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to do some prayers, and can someone, I didn't write down, I should have when Shanka left, his friend's name who is going to be taken off life support, something Sir.
Israel, sir.
Israel, Sir. Okay, so we'll make some mention his name in the prayers. So Snehi, if you'd like to put up the dedication prayers and the prayer for the quick return of Lama Zopa. So thinking that we've created some virtuous karma, we're going to be dedicating that, but also the karma that we created in past lives that's still on our mind stream, that hasn't been destroyed, virtuous karma that we will produce in the future. due to these virtues, Gewadi, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception, each and every migrator, so even those that you hate now and so forth, lead them into that enlightened state. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen yet arise and grow, and may that which has already arisen to some degree not diminish, but increase more and more. And then prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the conquerors, Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. Victorious Losang, means Lama Tsongkhapa, father and sons, along with the lineage masters and all objects of refuge of infinite lands, infinite realms. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading Shakyamuni's precious and complete teachings. That means upholding them, receiving the teachings and spreading them to others. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience, sopa, that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make this request. When striving single-pointedly for the sake of the conqueror's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and striving also for mother sentient beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving, infallible truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, or the oceanic blessings of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, the bodhisattvas, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for we fortunate disciples. Thank you. And then, so eyes, you all are gurus who are eyes for our understanding or viewing all the infinite scriptures. You're like our glasses, our eyes, our very eyes. Supreme gateway for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by love and mercy, all illuminating spiritual friends. Please live a long and stable life. So thank you. Israel Sir, make special dedication. Think Israel Sir is in his last days. May, due to the merits that I have created in the past, the present, and the future, due to the merits of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the Shravakas, the Pratika Buddhas, due to these merits, may Israel Sir, once passed away, quickly find a perfect human rebirth, find the perfect Mahayana spiritual guide, Guru, and quickly ascend the stages of the path and achieve enlightenment, he himself for the sake of all sentient beings. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. If those of you have time, on Monday we have a discussion group. I think 12:30 we have the prayers, Tara prayers for the quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche that I'll lead, and then at 2 Eastern time there's discussion group. We have a good group of geeks, so if you have time, come and join us. See you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable George. Thank you, Sine.
Thank you, Sine.